once you start working on clarity, it really starts to open up the choices that you have. And the more clear you are, a lot of times the more choices you have.
Good morning, Heath. Thanks for joining me today on an episode of Talks.
Yeah. Hey, good morning, Ryan. Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. We've been wanting to do this for a while. Again, Heath, if you could tell us a little bit about what you do at Rise Over Run Coaching.
Yeah, sure. Well, first off, like you mentioned, my name's Heath Hunsaker. I am a certified high performance coach through the High Performance Institute. And really what I do at Rise Over Run is we encourage everybody to opt into life. In today's society, there's so many people that are choosing to opt out, whether it's opting out through video games or through substance abuse, or just going through life. And what we strive to do is really to help bring people back together, to help them understand who they are and have them opt into their life to live a life full of meaningful purpose, energy, and connection.
Wow, that answer smacked me right across the face. I love that. So, let me ask you, the first question that comes to mind is what causes people, in your experience, not to opt in?
Yeah, I think that there's a few reasons. One of the key reasons that I see, and one of the very first things we ever talk about, is really gaining clarity. Mm-hmm. It's gaining clarity on who they are. Are they living in alignment with who they are? What do they really want in life? And this goes beyond just professional success, but it goes to deeper. Like as an individual, what do you really want in life? And then I think it also, another reason people opt out is in today's society with so many social media outlets and so many ways to hide behind a screen, whether it be positive or negative, we're just missing that human component of connection. And, I'm a firm believer that we are created beings, and we're created for connection. Yeah. And I think without having that real connection with people, we start to withdraw and we start to opt out of life, and we just start to kind of go through the routine and go through the process of day in, day out. Yeah,
the idea of opting in, like you said, I look back and there is like a tendency that I see and clients that I work with where it's like, they want to set a track and just be able to like go down the track. And it's almost like, I'm like, well, you're going to be, you're on the track right now. You know what I mean? It's just, right. It's like something that, it's like supposed to be easy or something like that. And I always remind people it's not supposed to be easy, but I think of like my own kind of journey. Like I was working really hard. So the argument right there is that opting out, doing the opposite of that, that's hard work too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was doing a lot of opting out, but it's funny because when I look back, there was a point where it was like, no, I'm going to opt in. I mean, I obviously didn't use that language,
sure.
But I was like just letting life happen. And I see so many people, and this is said without judgment, I see so many people living that way. And, I think one of the ways that is the first way that you mentioned is one I still fall into. And I know you kind of coach me on that at the Highest Life Design Mastermind sometimes, is that clarity, just right. Unclear. And the way I see it is we don't, because there's so much information thrown at us, we don't think as deeply as we could about things, because we're like, okay, I'm only going to go 2 levels deep because we see this piece of information coming and you've got to do something different. So you're not as clear on why, I'm trying to think of a good example, but so we don't think as deep. And, then we realize we made some decisions because we didn't really understand something all the way through, if you will.
Right.
So I think, clarity is huge. And I think it's just our kind of the nonstop life that really, the nonstop, information, cell phones, 24-hour news cycle, all the stuff that keeps us from being clear. So with that being said, what can you do
Yeah.
One person versus a world of that.
Yeah. I'll give you an answer, but it also goes back to something that you said before, is that people will often choose to either opt in or opt out. And I think the key word there is choose. We choose to do this. We can choose to stay on the roller coaster, or we can choose to get off it. And I think that having that choice is something that sets us apart just as a species. Yeah. We have the choice to stay up late and Netflix binge, till all hours of the morning, and then be completely exhausted for work the next day. Or on the flip side of that, we can choose to have a decent bedtime, whatever that is for you, be able to get up in the morning, maybe get a quick workout in order to just, help our bodies awaken, and then go and have a successful day at work. So I think a lot of it is to answer your question of how do we do this? I think one of the key things is it comes down to choice. And it's really, what do you want? What do you want to choose in life? And I think that it comes back to you as an individual. There's a great quote by a lady named Ruth Casey that said, it only takes one person to change your life, you. And it's making that choice. You have the ability to do that. So I think the first thing with clarity is understanding that you have a choice, that life happens. The old saying is that everyone always said, oh, well, this happened to me. Well, no, maybe it didn't happen to you. Maybe it happened for you. Yeah. It's a choice of how you see. So I think the first thing to do is really to understand that we all have a choice.
Yeah. And, I think the first thing I think of there is that maybe listeners might think, I don't have a choice. And I remember I had a mindset where, there are some circumstances that I was kind of born into or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's still a choice. At the end of the day, I did realize, and it seems so obvious, but I was making a choice to allow those to dictate, how my life was going to go. And there's still a choice there. So I think that's really powerful. And I also think that there's kind of this common theme in this where, sometimes it's difficult to make a choice. I've definitely been in situations where I'm like, something, for example, has upset me. And I'm like, I'm not going to let this upset me. It feels like very against the grain at first. Right. But right. So does feeling upset, so yeah. It's not like not doing it is not easier. So what is, what in your experience, what holds people back from choosing?
Yeah. I think what holds people back is really the mindset, as you mentioned, that they don't think they have a choice, that they think this is the way it has to be. And I think a lot of times it's just what's been ingrained and what we've been conditioned to in our life, whether good or bad. Whether it's growing up in a moderately wealthy family or a non-wealthy family, a poor family, and how I think a lot of times it's what's ingrained in us that dictates whether or not we want to make that choice or not. And again, I think it all comes back to clarity, because I think when people don't want to make a choice, or people say that they struggle with the choice, that's a real thing. It's not something to brush to the side and say, oh, just make a better choice. I think it comes back to whether or not they have once you start working on clarity, the ability to have that starts clarity to open up the choices that you have. What do you intend? And how clear you are about that, because a lot of times the more choices once you start working on clarity, it really starts to open up the choices that you have. And the more clear you are, a lot of times the more choices you have. And it can open up the door to so many great things if you start to become clear on who you are, clear on how you want to be with other people, and just gaining greater clarity on your life overall. So I think people don't choose or don't want to choose because they have an overall lack of clarity in some aspect of their life.
Yeah, I think you walked towards something there that I want to make sure we make a distinction about. And I think it's clarity versus certainty, mm-hmm. right? Because there is no certainty, right?
Right.
And that's one of the things that we all have to deal with. It's funny that I kind of sum up my college career as the undergrad was kind of
Right.
And that's powerful. But we all are dealing with this lack of certainty. And I think that's what holds us back from having a sense of clarity.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think you're right. And I think too many times, myself included, and I'm speaking to myself just as much as anybody else, is that I want to be certain before I make a decision.
Yeah.
And I will put off making a decision, or I will analyze and think about it until it's almost too late to make a decision. And the decision is going to be made for me, to where if I can take all of the information that I have and make the best choice based on the information I have today, I can adapt and I can change as I go along. Yeah. Very seldom are you one decision away from fatality. Now, you can say drinking and driving, yes, that's one decision away from fatality. But most of the time, we're not just one decision away from fatality. We're just one decision away from making another decision.
Yeah.
And the great thing is that once we make a decision and go down a certain path, it's like light starts to shine again. And your path becomes just a little bit brighter every step that you take. But if you never take that first step, then you're kind of stuck where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the thing too. And I see this a lot with clients that I work with. It's like they're stuck in analysis paralysis. It's like, which path is the best? And it's like, well, number one, the first question is, who chooses which one's the best in the end? Is it's not that. And what the actual issue is that this inability to choose, right? That's actually what I think is the core there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're right. And I think sometimes it's just taking that first step, either way. And I've always believed that if you don't take a first step, you're making a choice.
Yeah.
So you either make a choice to move forward one way or the other, or you're making the choice to stay put. And sometimes that's not the best choice. Sometimes it is. But no matter what you do, you're making a choice to either move forward one way or the other, or to stay put.
Yeah. So really what I'm hearing is like, kind of stand by and learn from your decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you learn, as you make each decision, as you make each choice, more information will come to you. So, it's like a lot of times within algebra, you have a great big long problem, but there's steps that you have to take, and you can't skip a step or else you'll miss the entire part of the problem. And so it's kind of like what I've seen my clients is, it's just taking that first step and then having that faith and confidence that, hey, if once I take that first step, more will be revealed to me so that I can then take that next step. And it might be that next step is a step forward, or it might be that you need to take a step back and reevaluate. But the fact that you've made that initial step allows greater things to be open to you, more information, if you will, to make that next decision.
Yeah, there definitely is, I don't know if it's a cultural thing or what, but there's this whole thing that like failure is bad. And I guess, I'm not saying failure is good, right?
Right.
But it also depends on how you look at it, right? Because like you said, if you take a step, and you start by starting, as you're saying, and then you don't, and then it doesn't lead to success, at least that doesn't lead to success. So, I mean, it's hard to think of things that way, but it really is, you've got to do things so what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. And there's a great thought. I do a lot of work as well within corporations in the agile way of working, agile project management. And one of the key components there is to fail fast.
Yeah.
And I love that, because if you fail fast, you get that failure out of the way. Now, that doesn't mean you go and you look and say, okay, how can I fail? Because you don't purposely want to go and fail.
Sure.
But you can't be afraid that you will fail. If you fail fast, you've got that failure out of the way. Now you can move on to the next thing. And it might be that one quote unquote failure was just what you needed in order for your next step to your success.
Yeah.
So fail fast. I use that a lot with my clients is, it's okay. Make sure that it's not detrimental. It's not going to set you back, 10 years or whatever that might be, or something drastic, but it's okay to fail fast and learn and adapt and move on.
Yeah. Yeah. There's certainly a cost with it, right? So just make sure the cost isn't something you're not willing to pay. Right. I think you should be, well, maybe let me take that back and not say pay, but willing to invest, right? Because it's an investment. So when you do learn these things, you're investing in knowing the right path and the right way to go. Right.
Yep. Exactly.
Good. So if someone wanted to work with you, where could they find you online? How could they contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. They can go to the website, which is rorcoaching.com. And, one thing I thought that I would do for your audience is that as we talk about clarity, and I talked about, what are ways that you can get clear with yourself, with your interactions, and maybe even your success markers. Because if you know how you've been successful in the past, that a lot of times will help you on your decision-making process. I'd love to give to your audience a simple worksheet. It's called the Clarity Worksheet. And they can go to rorcoaching.com/clarity. And there they can enter in their email address and they can download this. It's they can fill it in and they can understand, maybe gain a little bit better clarity as to what makes them who they are and where they want to go.
Yeah, no, I will say it's funny because I was going to say this comment towards the end, but I always was like, man, I'm feeling I'm not as clear as I could. I can't wait till one of the mastermind sessions so I can talk with you, because you certainly helped me with that. So yeah, I think I'm going to go to that too and download that worksheet just so I can have it, when you're not available. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So rorcoaching.com/clarity.
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, thank you for talking with me.
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan. I've enjoyed it. Yeah.
All right. Take care, Heath.
All right. Thanks.